All right, welcome back to episode 3 of the Barrels and Bylaws podcast. I am your host, Matthew Bolowitz, alongside none other than Rocco Koza, and we are joined by a special guest. I'm very excited about this one. We have none other than the famous Lynn Berry. How are you doing, Lynn?
It's so good to be here.
Well, thank you for coming.
So thrilled.
By way of an introduction, Lynn Berry is the owner of Bridge Insurance Group, which is 12 years old.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Bridge Insurance. You cover whole life, Medicare, long-term care, home, auto, commercial. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
We do everything.
Okay.
Yeah, we do everything.
That. We do everything. Okay. That also goes into how many states that you're licensed in. I think it's easier to say how many you're not licensed in at this point because I think there's maybe 20.
Yes, we're up to 20 now. So
there you go. That was a
pretty good input.
Pretty good. Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. So I think Bridge Insurance Group continues to grow. I saw online, are you servicing now almost 10,000 clients?
We're closer to probably about 6. So 6,000 clients, yes.
And growing. So this is a big year for Lynn because before Bridge Insurance, I saw on your profile that you were in the insurance industry since 1985. This is year number 40.
40.
People are knocking the book, but they're going to think we're liars. But yeah, year 40. Congratulations.
Yes.
It's stunning. When I realized it was 2025 and I went, oh, it's been 40 years. So
that's phenomenal.
So obviously you enjoy your profession.
I do.
What do you enjoy most about it?
No one loves insurance.
Okay.
No little girl in 5th grade wants to grow up to be an insurance agent.
Okay.
But what I found is I really love stories, and I love meeting new people. So my passion was a little bit skewed toward medical. So I really thought I was going to be a doctor. And thankfully, for all of the schooling, and my dad was thrilled. He didn't have to pay for medical school. But I get to traffic in a lot of medical things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get to meet a lot of interesting people, and I get to hear stories every single day. So it's actually the blend of everything I wanted to be, which was a reporter, a doctor, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I get to do this every day. So it's just a good blend of what I've always had a passion about, but didn't have to go to 10 years of school for.
Yeah. It takes all of about 2 seconds when you meet with Lynn to see how genuine, authentic, empathetic, and client-focused that she truly is. So I cannot wait to... We're going to talk about stories, but it's not our story.
Oh.
Yes.
And we're going to get into your story. So I'm glad you're a storyteller.
Yes.
Because the goal of this podcast truly is we want to accomplish 2 things. One is to hone in on what or the time surrounding when you made the decision to become an entrepreneur. There's so many people out there. This country is built on the backs of entrepreneurs. And there's so many people on the fence that they don't know, they don't have the confidence, they're scared, there's fears, there's anxiety, should they make the jump or not? So it's always good to talk about that moment in time. There's a lot that goes into it, and that's easier said than done, but that's the first task for us. The second is, it's not all roses and rainbows. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of heartbreak, heartburn, a lot of issues. So what we want to talk about, and we can go as specific as you'd like or as broad as you'd like, but really hone in on what are some of the challenges that you've run into as an entrepreneur. I know there's a lot. I know there's a lot of issues, but let's see if we can unpack some of them today. So that's what we're going to accomplish. I think we can do it. I'm excited. So thank you for being here.
Yes, truly.
I'm honored. Thank you.
So let's dive into it. The first thing that I want to dive into is your origin story. Rocco's known you for a very long time. I've known you probably for the past 4 or 5 years, but can you share a little bit about your upbringing, kind of growing up through now into before you even got into the industry? Share us a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So broken home, which back in those days was not as common. So I had kind of that weird childhood where I raised myself. My siblings would say that. But I loved being competitive. So gymnastics and dance, whatever I could get into, singing. I took some piano lessons. So I love to be top of everything. I just want to be the best at everything. So that was kind of an independence that maybe I had earlier than most because I didn't have a strong family parental unit in the home. I think my mom did the best she could, but obviously it was a little bit of a struggle. Planned to go to college, and then life turns. So I ended up not going to college, and at 18, I'm sitting in a high school with a number 2 pencil filling in dots because I was going to be an insurance agent for Metropolitan Life.
Wow.
So I get into that and realize I know nothing. I mean, they're talking about deductibles, and I don't even know what that word means. Maybe, Rocco, you felt that way, Matt. When you were in law school, it's like, what does that word even mean? And just feeling like I was the only one in the room who didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So 2 things. I was young, and I was a female in an industry that was really, I was the only female agent in my office in Massachusetts, and so young.
What was the draw to insurance specifically?
It was, oddly enough, I was going to a college up there, my ex-husband was, and we had to find something, and it was the smallest town ever. There just wasn't anything. There was a MetLife insurance agency, and I think you could have worked at a boutique, but that was it. There wasn't a lot of jobs, so we had to have something to make money and, pay our bills. So that was the first thing that came off the newspaper ad.
Wow.
And we went in and interviewed, and both of us ended up getting our licenses, and we started working in the business in 1985. So
Wow.
So you started working together.
yes, we did. Same
Interesting.
branch office.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. But you said something that I'm curious. You said that back then, what women weren't really in that industry. Has it shifted now? Like, what is the statistic now? Women in the industry compared to back then? Is it a lot more women in the insurance industry now?
There is a little bit of growth, but it is still a very male-dominated industry. I think it's well over 50% still male and still an aging population. So I have a little bit of a passion to introduce this as a trade because that's exactly what it is. It isn't a college-educated piece of or a career. You can do this as a trade. So I feel it needs to be talked about a little bit more, and especially with females, because this is something you can do. You can make good money as long as you have good mentors and a good path. You can take it to any state. So if you do need to move, you don't have to re-interview for a new job and go through that whole process. So that is part of the passion of what I do.
And you did move quite a bit, correct?
14 times.
14.
5 states. Yeah. But always in the insurance business.
Now, same company, or were you moving insurance agencies? Was it a larger agency? Where did you settle in?
So we started with MetLife. That was the big training piece. And that was 3 years. After that, we kind of got the little sniff in our nose. We wanted to be independent, thought we could do better, make better commissions, serve a little niche markets. So our focus became small business owners and self-employed people, and we sold health insurance.
Oh, wow.
So we chased that for years. And so that agency eventually turned into about 680 agents in 28 states.
Wow.
Over a pretty long career there. But it's still going today. It's the agency that I left to start my own agency. So
let's get into that a little bit. So you started in a Bridge Insurance Group in 2013?
correct.
So as you're approaching that, what were you thinking about? What was going on to make that, leading up to that big switch?
Well, they're all unreal, which happens, and everyone's to blame. So there's never a marriage that falls apart with one party at fault. It's always a joint venture. But our marriage had fallen apart, and we had owned the agency. I was a 50-50 partner, and we had 3 companies. We had a lead generation company, we had a retail agency, and then we had what we would consider a wholesale agency. So we were working with agents, we were working direct to public, and then we were generating leads that we were selling to our agents. I was 50-50 partner, but not acting in any of those roles as an owner.
Yeah.
I was completely on the employee side. When the marriage ended, obviously I was offered to stay on. I didn't think it was healthy for me as that was happening. I tried it for 8 months, but then at the end of it all, I carried files out of that office and thought, I only know how to do one thing. I only know how to sell insurance, but I didn't know how to run a company. So the very first thing I did is I called some people that I knew had successful businesses, offered to buy them lunch. And I said, you've got to tell me how to run a company. I have no idea. I've only ever been an employee, even though on paper, I was an owner. So it was brutal. Brutal. Those 3 people have watched me and are still in my life today.
Wow.
Oh, that's what I want to get into, because it's something that you were talking about when you started Koza Law Group too, that you went and met with as many people as you possibly could and just crowdsourced and gathered as much information as possible. What was that like? I mean, this is for both of you, really.
Yeah.
Just, you made the jump. This is where we're headed.
Yeah.
And then you're just gathering
Yeah.
as much information as possible.
I mean, you have that oh shit moments where you're like, what did I do? Is this the right decision? I mean, that's what it was for me. It was, you kind of do it and you're like, okay, you think you have it all figured out. And then I'm like, oh, wow, I just did that. Like, I went from, making multiple 6 figures to 0. I got to figure shit out. And I said, okay, and that's what I did. I just crowdsourced. I said, okay, let me talk to people that work with lawyers. What don't they like about lawyers? And that's kind of how I started. I said, I just found out what people didn't like about lawyers and said, okay, I'm not going to do those things. And then I just started meeting these people that I knew and saying, hey, I started a firm. Here's what I do. It was just kind of, that's how the ball kept rolling. And it was interesting because I kept hitting roadblocks right when I was ready to, is this right? I'd have some sort of breakthrough. And that's kind of been the path along the way. And I don't know if you've experienced a similar path when you started the agency.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Grew up poor. I mean, we were on food stamps. We didn't have any money. I remember my mom was a waitress. I would take money out of her tip jar for my lunch. So my mentality was, you never buy anything. You scrounge, you learn to do it yourself. So one of my first business coaches, who wanted to be a business coach and just volunteered to help me because he didn't know what he was doing either, I remember one of his lines was, strengthen your strengths and hire your weaknesses. And I looked at him, I was like, I don't have any money. Like, what am I going to hire? And he asked me what my strengths were, and I knew I was not a bookkeeper. If you sat me in front of a computer and told me to do Excel spreadsheets, you're going to have one unhappy girl. Yeah. So I did manage to hire somebody, even part-time, my first year. So that was a key component. And I learned how to grow in those areas, like continue to do what I do well. My second business coach was funny. She was a wealthy woman, and you would never know it because she never showed it. And I took her out to lunch, and she sat back and looked at me, and she goes, you're kind of cute. So, what does that have to do with anything? And, of course, it's about 2012. And she said, social media. Everywhere you go, everything you do, post it. Get people to know, like, and trust you. So if you're at, a restaurant, you like the food, post it. Mm-hmm. Don't just be selling. You talk about who you are, who you interact with, what you do in your community, who your kids are. What impact you have. So I got sick of seeing myself. My kids would find out where I was. They're like, I don't know. Let's check Facebook to see where mom is. That's where it was. So, but it worked. It was free. The component that I had come out of, unfortunately, in the divorce is I ended up owing about $250,000 to the IRS. And kind of at that time got stuck with the house, the mortgage, the kids. It's just not a great situation financially. I was pressed up against the wall, but refused to give up. I knew I could dig myself out of it if I was just given time and opportunity. I knew I was good at my job, and so that was a pretty good piece. And then John Desiak was the next one. So I'll shout out to John, who owns Printscape here. He is absolutely the biggest heart and the fiercest business owner I've ever met. He just makes it happen, and then he'll cry and hug you and give you the shirt off his back. So I wanted to emulate that and be as good as I possibly could in the business world, but I also wanted to never lose the fact that I love people, I care for people, and I do always want to put them first when we're doing business.
Going back to 2012, 2013, you have 4 children?
I did. Yeah.
So how old were they then?
Well, 2 had already moved out, but I did have 2 at home, and they were in college. So it was a pretty brutal year.
Yeah.
It was 2012, and my youngest had gone off to her freshman year of college. My second youngest had gone off to his sophomore year of college, and my ex-husband moved out the very next day. So after 28 years, I was an empty nester to say the least.
Yeah.
Everyone was gone. And I remember just sitting on my couch and there was almost a sense of relief because the battle to the end of the marriage was a little bit rough at that time. Mm-hmm. We've reconciled. It's fine today. But those years were not at all easy. I struggled for everything. Every dime I made, I would drive anywhere to get a client. I'd go out to Chicago. I'd drive to Indiana, Ohio. I remember being in Chicago in a friend's house because that's how I would have to stay. I couldn't afford a hotel. Trying to see clients, trying to sell business, and not having enough gas money to drive back home here to PA. So that was 2013. That wasn't 20 years ago.
No.
That was recent enough for me to feel the sting of that. Wow. Yeah. There was a lot that occurred during those years.
Well, we've talked about this on prior episodes as well, just how lonely of a road entrepreneurship can be. To put that on top of already what you were going through, and you've already had a ton of people that were relying on you. While they may not have been at home, they're at college or out of college, you still had people relying on you, which doesn't change when you start a business either. As both of you know, there's teams and families that are still relying upon you. So you were, in a way, already prepared to become a business owner and to crush it like you have been.
The beauty to our industry is it could be so flexible that I don't remember ever missing, even when my two youngest were in college and they did sports, I don't remember missing baseball games or track meets. Yeah. I would work around that. I would work Saturdays, Sundays, wherever I needed to, so that I could be there for them because they needed that support. Their family had just fallen apart. Even though they were adults, that still stung, and they hadn't expected it, and they were coping with that. So that was a big driver for me. Anytime I wanted to give up, I would sit on my steps and I would think, who does that benefit?
Yeah.
No one. Yeah. Community doesn't benefit. My clients don't benefit. My kids don't benefit. No one benefits if I quit or give up. And I felt that drive that I had when I was a young gymnast, when I was, I was always good in school. I had that drive to be the best. So one of the things, and I just heard this, is managed decline was the word that I heard. What I never wanted to be, and this is how I triggered into, I'm okay with running my own business. I never wanted to be in a place where somebody could cap what I could become, because I did think I could become something great. Not for the sake of patting myself on the back, but just because I had gifts that I didn't want to waste, that I wanted to make sure were used to their fullest potential to serve people, because insurance is a nightmare. The only thing that's worse is law. You know that. I mean, we're very litigious. Read our contracts. You wrote them.
Yes, no, right. Absolutely.
And 100%. For people that are not trafficking in that every day, trying to choose plans and navigating through the aggressive sales agents and all the marketing and trying to find something that's really meaningful that they understand. And I will tell people often, they're like, well, I don't quite get it, but I think I'm going to choose it. And I'm like, nope, we're going to go through it again. Yeah. I will not let you choose a plan unless you understand it. So part of that is key to what I believe I've been gifted to do. I can take those complex things, put them on a little bit lower level, not lower level, but a more understandable level, because I'll read through contracts and I don't always understand what they're saying. I have to read it 3 or 4 times. Yeah. But that's a service I didn't want wasted. We need people like me. We need people like you.
Do you think so? You said something, and I want to know if you agree with this. I was on a podcast. They talk about entrepreneurs, and they said entrepreneurs have a couple, successful entrepreneurs have a couple very common characteristics. One is that we believe we're meant for something special. We're meant to do something great. But on the flip side, we also believe that we're wholly inadequate. We're constantly, and do you agree with that statement?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Yeah,
you've never met anybody more voraciously trying to learn everything.
Yeah,
I fall asleep to podcasts. I wake up to podcasts. I'm like, how does crypto work? I'm looking I don't know anything about anything. I'm a junkie. I'm a knowledge junkie.
Yeah.
I hate to be underprepared, but I always feel inadequate.
Yeah, it's the curse. I believe that too. I feel that way all the time because you do because I think entrepreneurs, we have some level of something inside of us that's turned off that other people have on, that that ability to stop themselves or to prevent from taking the big risk, or we just don't have that button. And we're just like, okay, cool, we'll figure it out. But then there's also that side of us. I think we're always questioning ourselves. We're questioning our worth. Are we worthy of this? Are we doing the right things? Is this going to matter? And I think when I heard that on a podcast, it was like, wow, like that is a powerful statement, because it's something I believe we all struggle with. We just don't talk about it enough. And to me, it really hit me, because I'm like, yeah, like I do struggle with that all the time. And it's interesting to hear you, and then you feel the same way. And I think a lot of people do, and most people don't talk about it though.
Oh, it's so evident, and it's so pervasive, because that is one of the things that I think anybody that's in any field where you have some degree of responsibility, as we do, to guide people through these things, I very much swallow every day hard and say, I hope I'm doing this right. I really hope I advise that person properly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll go study it. And there are times, I've had to go back and say that really wasn't a good choice. Yeah. We need to undo that. We need to do something else. And that's part of it, is embracing that. Yeah. I think that you and I joked right before we got on here. If I were ever go into politics, I would just publish all my sins, so nobody could bring them up. Here's what I've done. You don't have to go looking. I'll make it easy.
The skeletons up on the stage, you just dump them out. Here you go. Don't look anywhere. They're right here.
But when you embrace that, then all the power, all the fear is gone.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And we talk about failure, and we talk about but it's a trite word that's thrown around.
Yeah.
But when you are truly not afraid to fail, and at a point when you're $250,000 in tax debt, you don't know what your next step is. You've never run a business. You have no other skills. You have no college education. All you've done is sell insurance. You have to go, okay, well, here we go. What's next steps? And
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a scary time.
It's terrifying and exhilarating.
Exactly.
But I didn't want that managed decline. I didn't want somebody 20, 30 years into my career to go, she's too old now.
Yeah. No,
I mean, society already tells me that. I don't need that. My scrolling tells me I'm old every day. I need wrinkle cream and Botox and everything else. So.
I hear words I don't understand what they mean. I'm like, what does that word need to mean now? Like, I don't know what that means. I have no idea. Like, my daughter texted me today because she saw one of the posts we did about the what's in and what's out.
I saw that.
My daughter texted me, gosh, that was really funny. She's like, you really clocked the girls on that one. I'm like, what does that mean?
Clock the girls?
I said, drama's out, joy is in. She's like, oh, you really clocked the girls on that one. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I assume that's supposed to be good or funny.
So we have to use that now with our teams this week. I'm using that. I am absolutely. I'll make sure I get it first.
I think I know what this means, but I'm not sure. So that's how we know we're getting old then.
Cheers to that.
That's right. So there's one thing. So as you make the decision and you're starting up this business, a lot of time, all of the folks that we've talked to thus far, everyone can remember the naysayers, but it also seems like there's always one or two people that are there and say, yeah, take the jump. Like, you can do this. I believe in you. You're gonna, as you said, someone told you you're gonna look back and think, I should have done this 5 years sooner.
Exactly.
Was there someone like that for you as you're crowdsourcing and talking to everybody and gathering all this information? Were there people specifically that you look back on now and say, wow, that person had my back?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There were people, because there was one person in particular that said, if you don't come work for me, I'll bury you in the business. You'll never make it. Go.
Wow.
But I was so embarrassed, Matt, Rocco, I was so embarrassed I didn't have any skills. I didn't have a college education. And I'm a grown adult woman. I couldn't go put in an application. Everything required a 4-year degree.
Oh.
I was pressed up against the wall. I had no choice. But I also knew that the possibilities were greater if I didn't go work for somebody. I didn't take that secure job because I could be downsized. It could be, there's so many things that happen. I see it every day.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. That's the great lead in, because as I was preparing for this interview, this podcast, I came across, you touched upon that individual, and I wanted to dive into that. So you had someone specifically essentially threaten you that if you don't come work for them, they will bury you in this industry.
Correct.
What was that like?
It was pretty devastating because I was privy to some of my clients who had given me some inside information and emails that had been exchanged that I was no longer in the business and things like that. So it was an active campaign, and I looked over my shoulder for a minute. What that did for me is I really believe two things are components of any entrepreneur: flexibility and resilience. At some point, I didn't want to look over my shoulder anymore, so I just went for it. And I knew that whatever that was, I watched lines. I mean, there were certain areas I wouldn't advertise in certain places. I wouldn't go to certain networking events. I didn't want to provoke, but I built. And it was the habits. It was the daily habits. It was what I did every single day that just built. I just kept building that foundation. And I knew that someday it would pay off. And I even went against the advice of take one product, become an expert in that product, and only do that product. And I thought, that's not what I want to build, because you put all your eggs in one basket, and I've seen too much legislation pass for one particular product line that can upend your entire financial world. So I built slower, but I built broad, and I tried to build a line, and then I'd hire an expert. And I'd build a line, and I'd hire an expert. And I'd build a line, and I'd hire an expert. So even went against the advice of almost everybody in my industry that's ever done this. And I sat through multiple events where I'd be patted on the head, honey, I hope you make it in the insurance industry.
It's wild.
That's incredible. That is incredible. But you brought something up, though, that, Rocket, you talk about this all the time, and this is what very few people have, and that's consistency.
Yeah.
The power of consistency and day in and day out, doing the work, putting in the work, and how that creates a foundation. I don't know if that can be taught.
Honestly, I truly think it's about discipline, right? Like I've looked at like anything in my career that I've been successful. Like I may not be the smartest guy in the room or the quickest, but I'm the most deadly consistent. Like if I say I'm going to do something, take it to the bank, and I'm going to do it consistently. And because I just always looked at, and Simon Sinek does a talk on this, and it actually, like, he talks about like going to the gym. He's like, if you go to the gym for 6 hours one day, you're not going to look any different. He's like, but if you go to the gym for 20 minutes a day for the next 6 weeks, you're going to look different. He's like, it's consistency over intensity. And I used to get caught up back in the day. Like I would try and do everything. I'm like, I was so intense. Then I took a step back and said, okay, how do I be successful in anything I'm doing? It's just daily action. So literally, I'm consistent almost to a fault. Like every day, no matter what day, I'm up at 4 a.m., if not earlier. I do the same thing every morning. I start my day the same exact way. I end my day the same way. It's like there are certain things that I've built, and it's just when you do it long enough, it becomes a habit. But that's the consistency, I think, as an entrepreneur. You have to build, because that's the foundation that'll get you to that next level. But too many people try and do too many things. Find out what's going to move the needle and do that consistently. Like when we talk about marketing, I always say, when we talk in the firm and I mentor about marketing, I said, you don't have to do everything. Do something consistently. Like, if you're going to pick LinkedIn, just be on LinkedIn every day. Just do that every day. It may not pay off today, but we talk about, I said, the work I do today always pays off 6 months from now, as long as I'm consistent. But if I take a week off, I lose all the momentum, because it's about momentum. Do you see it the same way in how you've approached business?
Yeah, absolutely. There is no question about it. It is really those actionable steps that you do every single day. There is no work-life balance, first of all.
There's not.
So that achievement of, 10% of my day is going to go here, 10% of my day is going to go here. It's never that.
No.
What I believe, though, there is a puzzle, and that puzzle has to be maintained. But certain puzzle pieces are going to be different sizes at different times.
That's a good way of putting it.
So, and I went to a great event this week, Matt Spielman, business coach, and So, but he had this puzzle piece, and I thought it was a little bit interesting for me to look at it because it talked about community, it talked about family, it talked about career was certainly one of them. Health was one of them. It talked about relationships, spirituality, your significant other. And I'm like, I read that and my whole heart just went, ugh, I don't have one, and that was like, okay, that's out of balance.
Yeah.
Again, there is no work-life balance because what I do is so intense on such a daily basis. And I'm there on Saturday. I'm in my office on Saturdays. I'm doing that cleanup work. I'm there on Sundays. I'm doing the night appointments. I have one tonight after we're done here. So
keep you longer.
I don't think anybody else on my team is going to be, it's fine. But it's the consistency of continuing to never let your foot off the gas pedal. True.
And I think the point, you bring up something, and it's just like the work-life balance. I think everybody, people talk about like they want this work-life balance, but they don't until you build consistent, because you can have some level of balance, right? But I feel like you're not going to have it until you figure out the consistent things you need to do every day. Like I've learned that now, because I've been able to do these things consistently, if I want to take a day off or a week off, I can. But I had to build the consistent habits to be able to do that before. Like if you want to be successful, like look, I always say, if you want to be average or kind of just, okay, I'm good, then you can find balance somewhere. But if you truly want to be at the upper echelon of your profession, you're never going to be balanced. There's no such thing as work-life balance. It's your work and your life have to merge together. And you have to understand that to do that and to do that well, you have to figure out the consistent things you need to do. Take 1 year and just do that. And I guarantee the following year, your life will be completely different. But most people don't want to take that year and just commit to say, I'm going to be out of balance for a year. I'm going to work my ass off for 1 year, do these things because next year is going to be different. That's what I've watched it with people. I've watched it with myself. Like that's what it takes. I truly believe that. And then you can have some level of balance when you have the merger of the two.
So
I think there's just a huge misunderstanding of when someone says work-life balance, what do they really mean?
Yeah.
Do they mean work-life balance is I'm clocking in at 9, I'm clocking out at 5? That's what they mean by work-life balance. A lot of people are starting out.
Yep.
But to your point, if you integrate work and your life, there's always you'll find balance through that. So to your point of take a year, there's going to be imbalance. I would almost say you don't need imbalance. There's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
And okay, you don't need the extra hour and a half on a Saturday to watch the same Netflix show that you have for the past 16 years.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Take that hour and a half and say, you know what, I can put this towards my work. So to me, I completely agree. There's just an integration of work and your life. It doesn't have to be so rigid of my work-life balance means I get to clock out at 5. I leave all of my problems at work, and then I'll see you on Monday morning again. I think that's more of, look, there's 24 hours, there's 24 units in a day.
Yeah.
If you want some life balance where you don't have to miss kids' games, just know there's a trade-off to that. You got to find that 2 hours somewhere else.
Yes.
So that as long as you can come to terms that it doesn't end at 5, there's just 24 hours in a day. And those 2 hours can be found somewhere. Maybe it is on a Saturday or a Sunday. Whenever that is, that work-life balance will be there in the aggregate.
Yeah.
But that's where I think a lot of, especially I'm young, first off. Let me just be clear. I am.
Thanks for reminding us, Matt.
That's right. That's right. But I was about to say, all these young kids, but they think 5 o'clock, I'm done, I'm out of here, and it's that rigid thought of if I don't have that, if I stay until 5:30, my car is going to turn back into a pumpkin, and I'm not going to make it home. So
I mean, you're 100% right, because I just had lunch with a girl I went to law school with, and we were just talking, and she's like, yeah, I bill 2,000 hours a year. She's like, it's easy. She's like, that's just what I do. And it's like, it's just kind of how she's built her life. We were talking about like that, and she was saying like how, if people complain about not having the time, how much are you on social media? How much TV do you watch? Because if you're complaining about the time and complaining about not where you want to be success-wise, and you're spending any amount of time watching TV or on social media, not for marketing, but for the purpose of just scrolling, then stop complaining. because those are hours. If you look at the average American, they probably spend 15 to 20 hours a week doing those things. No, I do those things. I'm not going to say I don't watch TV, but I don't complain about where I am. I just keep moving forward.
One of the best and worst things that people have are now on the iPhones that you have. How much time have I spent on this? And they break it down per app, and you're like, oh God, this is not good. This is not good.
Good, not
So
good.
let's dive into the second topic, because I'm very excited about this one. Obviously, it can be very painful to talk about, but it is something that is going to help so many entrepreneurs out there. And that's, what were some of the struggles once you got into the business? Again, as specific as you want to get, or as broad as you'd like to get. What were some of the biggest challenges that you ran into as an entrepreneur, either starting out or even now, today?
Yeah. Well, it hits every category because you're doing everything. So first you need, maybe you need office space, and then you look at your budget and you're like, well, that's not going to happen. So then you get office space, and then you look at payroll and you're like, well, guess I'm not getting paid this week. And then you're right. Am I right?
No, I'm picturing things in my head as you're saying things.
Then you go into your office some days and you hit your knees and you're like, I'm so thankful for this. And then there's other days you go in and you're like, I quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And when you're public, you're open to criticism. So I'll never forget one of my most devastating days. I had posted some cute little meme of how I was being buried in my emails. There was just so much going on, and I had other people working in my emails. And from our biggest referral base, I was scolded by the owner and sent me the meme in a letter mailed in the mail that she saw that, and it was completely unprofessional. And one of the clients that they had referred had looked at that, and it was just like, I thought it was on my personal Facebook page, but then all of a sudden you realize So there's a little bit of every angle of life. Most of it is the pressure of managing multiple people now.
Yeah.
Because you start as an entrepreneur and then you're a small business owner. So there's emotions, there's needs, there's different ways to manage, there's different incentives for people, there's offenses, then there's the need, the want, the ask, hey, I need more money, I need this software, I need to go here, I need this training.
How do you navigate that? How many employees do you have right now?
Right now, we have 10 full-time, but I think we have a total of 20 in the roster. So there's some part-time, there's some people that are loosely affiliated, so they're not full-time. But it's an emotional roller coaster. Yeah. So one of the things I started to study is just being stoic. It's not that you're not empathetic, but you cannot go down with the ship. Yes. And people have no idea how many days I've gotten in my car and just cried. I cry on the way home. I cry on the way to the appointment, dust my face off, and go do what I need to do.
Wow.
At some point, you just begin to feel it less. It's not that you're caustic, but you realize you can function in crises. I had about a 7-year period where I was in another relationship, not great, and it was everything I needed to do to keep my head above water. So I was not even living in my own home. I had to leave my office and go stay in a hotel. I eventually moved into an apartment. I was hiding and running and trying to run the business on top of it. And that was in the last several years. So that was not far back either. And the constitution that I would bring to the table every day, one of my employees said, well, I looked at you on social media. I didn't think you were all that happy or all that great. She goes, I've been here a year. You're like that. And I said, I've worked on that.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't feel the things, but you don't get to be an entrepreneur that lasts unless you learn how to manage those things. And like you said, Rocco, some of it is just, oh, they're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I am so messed up in that area. Yeah. And I really need to fix myself.
Yeah.
And I screwed up.
Yeah.
It was my fault.
Yeah.
I take accountability.
Yeah,
I will do what I can to correct it.
Yes, absolutely.
I said that, and that was wrong.
Yeah.
That was insensitive. That was a poorly designed program, whatever. So I feel like as you grow and mature, it's not that you don't feel those emotions, but I think a lot of people look at me today, and I've had so many people come, work in the environment, and then quit and be like, it's so hard. And I never wanted to feel like what I've done is easy.
Yeah.
Because it really isn't. But it's choosing joy.
Yeah.
And it's choosing every day.
Yeah.
I am still a poor girl that grew up in Washington, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
That loves that hot cup of coffee in the morning. And I mean, I love my little puppies.
Yeah.
And I'm just really simple in the things that matter. And my son calls me, and that's a joy because he doesn't live in this state and he travels for a living, so I don't get to talk to him.
Yep.
I value every minute of that.
Yeah.
So part of it is it's exhilarating. It's terrifying being a business owner, but then you fail and you realize it's not the end.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then you realize you impact more people positively than you hurt. And everyone is human. Everyone is going to make mistakes. Everyone. And the thing that I just encourage everyone to do is own up to it. Realize you're not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do everything perfectly every day.
Right.
But treasure every little moment. Treasure the joke. You know, we're not big enough to sponsor the Pirates. Maybe someday.
Right. Yeah.
It's just not today. It's not my name to the backstop yet. But we sponsor a wiffle ball team, which I think is hilarious.
Often. Yeah, it's really
Like,
awesome.
love wiffle ball now. It's really competitive. These guys are so much fun to watch.
Crazy.
I've done it for like 5 years. So the big joke in my office is if I walk down the hallway, I'll hear Lynn. And then somebody's got a wiffle ball and they'll pitch it to me because I got to work on my opening pitch. Sure. So those are the moments you treasure.
Yeah.
We're all working hard. We're all doing our best, you know, and loving people, valuing them, really being sensitive, having that emotional quotient, but then also holding a standard.
Yeah.
You know, we're not here. This isn't a counseling session. This is a job. This is your workplace.
Yeah. There's an expectation.
There's an expectation.
Yeah. Do you think people, because I'm very into Stoicism as well, I think people have a huge misunderstanding of it. I think people think it's like it makes us emotionless. And I think if you're Stoic and you understand Stoicism, we're actually more emotional than most. We just understand how to control it and don't get emotional about things that we have no control over. Like that's why I try to explain that to people. I'm like, I'm not emotionless. I'm Italian. I'm passionate. I have more emotions than anybody. But if I can't control a situation, I'm not going to let it take my energy. And I think that's really the essence of Stoicism. And people have this huge I've found it recently. People have this huge misunderstanding. Like, oh, you're heartless, you're cold, I'm like, no, that's not it at all. It's like, but why am I going to give something energy that I have no control over? Do you find people having that misunderstanding when you talk about Stoicism?
Absolutely. Yeah, when I talk about Stoicism, they think it's just this cold, hard.
Yeah, it's not.
You know, no.
We care more than anybody.
But emotions are, you know, they're an indicator that something's wrong. They shouldn't be a dictator. And I say they're like a child.
Yes.
You know, you don't want that child to drive the car.
Right.
But you don't put them in the trunk either. You acknowledge they're there. There's a place for it. And it's kind of, you know, it's a red light to say there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you can go into the heavy emotion, but it does mean that we feel everything deeply.
Everything.
Everything deeply.
That is the biggest misunderstanding. 'Cause I'm like, I feel everything deeper than anybody. If someone's going through something here, I feel it more than they probably do. But it's like we just don't appear like we do. And I feel like that's a struggle I've had for years. Just people not understand that, yeah, like I'm feeling everything. It's all coming to me. But I'm not expressing it the way people think I should or think a person would that's expressing that emotion. And it creates this big, I think people have a misconception or perception of me. Because when I say I'm Stoic and I have these beliefs, they just think I don't feel anything. I don't care about anything. And it's the complete opposite. It's just the way we express it is different. And it's so hard to get people to understand it until they actually start reading about it and trying to learn what it is. Then it's like a light bulb goes off. And it's interesting how you say you're becoming more Stoic because I think as a business owner, you have to because it becomes such a roller coaster. If you don't know how to control that, you're dead in the water eventually.
You have to care more about their future than how they care about you right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I watched this scenario. It was a father and a daughter, and the daughter was in those stages of just having the meltdown. I need, take me to who, whatever. And he was flustered in his emotions. And I didn't address it at that time, but after the fact, I said, listen, she's testing you.
Yeah.
If you won't stand up to her, you won't stand up for her. you're her dad.
That's exactly right.
You have to control that situation. And that's what we are as leaders.
Yeah.
They need to see that when the legislation passes or, the market crashes or whatever industry we're in,
Yeah.
we acknowledge it,
Yeah.
not avoiding it. We're aware it's happening.
Yeah.
What do we do next?
Yeah.
What's our next
Exactly.
step?
Find the way forward.
You need to be that one because you need to care. You're carrying them. My team members are like eggs, not hard boiled either. They're raw.
Yeah.
I can't drop one. I carry them around every day. I'm thinking about them. Are they going to make it to work? Are they sick? Or is their car okay? Is there a lot of snow? We're parents.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what a business. I feel like that sometimes. I think you care about the people more than you care about yourself as a leader, and I think everybody looks at it from their own perspective, so they don't actually realize how much an entrepreneur or an owner of a business cares about the people. Because look, there are some assholes out there. Let's be real, but I think a truly good leader and entrepreneur cares deeply about the people. Just doesn't always express it the way they need. So it creates that, there's almost like this disconnect, I think. And then it's our job as leaders to figure out how do we bridge the disconnect. And that's, I think, a struggle of every entrepreneur. Like friends of mine that I talk to, we all have that same struggle, getting that to connect with people. I will go to bat for you. I will take the bullet. I will step in front of the spear. If the enemy's at the gate, I'm the one at the gate. It's just in getting people to understand that. And then I think once people understand it, they operate completely differently. That's how I see it.
Well, that's why you need armor bearers in your team because you can't say it to your people. Somebody else has to say it to your people.
You're right.
It's because if you say it, it's well, does he really? Yeah, Ben. Rocco was a successful lawyer in the corporate world. It could have been us four and no more, but you decided you wanted to make bigger impact. You wanted to give an opportunity to quality men like Matt.
Yep. Absolutely.
To expand his career. You're providing opportunity. You didn't have to go here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right.
That's the greatest form of sacrifice.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. But you do. If I just jump off the cliff and say, I'll figure it out and don't really think about what I'm doing when I'm doing it, then I'm like,
and if anybody wonders, he's a big teddy bear because every once in a while, not often, but every once in a while, I'm like, Rocco, I want to quit. I hate my job. And he'd be like, you're awesome.
Exactly.
Well, you are truly an inspiration, Lynn.
You really are.
This has been phenomenal.
Yes.
Let me ask you this: as we tie this all up together, with those entrepreneurs or soon-to-be entrepreneurs who are on the fence, is there anything that you'd like to tell them as they start thinking this through? Should I make this jump?
I'll be very radical. If you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, do it. No one is going to take care of your future like you will. If you develop a skill set, I don't care if you're selling, coasters or glasses or insurance or law, develop a skill set. You take care of yourself and your family. You put it in the hands of somebody else, then you're subject to any number of scenarios you have no control over. And that's where we get a little bit antsy.
Yeah.
That's where our greatness, it isn't that I think I'm the best insurance agent in the world.
Yeah.
But I don't want to put my future in the hands of someone else who has the right to control my paycheck, my time.
Yep.
I'll give you a great illustration as we leave. I had a gentleman, he's older than me, agency manager, worked as an employee. That relationship was on a little bit of sketchy ground, and he was calling me almost daily. How do I start an agent? Just do it.
Yeah. Just do it.
He's in the fetal position in the corner, curled up, just moaning. He has had the most incredible 2 years, has broken every record he ever thought.
Awesome.
Wow.
He pulled the plug. He went in. He knew who he was as a person. He knew his skill set. He knew his business.
Okay.
Don't hesitate.
Yeah.
And if it isn't possible to dive right in, take those action steps. It's the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9. Use the 5 to 9 to begin to develop skills, do your trainings, listen to podcasts, whatever you need to do to get good at whatever you want to launch.
Yeah.
But you control your future. Do America a favor and control your future.
Yes.
I love that.
I love that. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for going in.
Truly, thank you.
I really appreciate it. I love the story.
Yes. It's a
We're
pleasure.
going to have to dive into just a ton of interesting topics, and I think it's going to help quite a few people out there. So thank you so much. And thank you.
You're awesome.
That's right. That's right. And thank you to all the listeners out there. Subscribe, give us a like, give us a follow.
Yeah. Share it. to your
Share
friends.
it.
Hair.
Yes.
Obviously, follow Lynn. She's on social media. We talked about that, but she's on social media. I think it's Insurance Lynn on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then Bridge Insurance Group also our Instagram. So, yes, give us a follow, give us a like, let us know, and stay tuned because we have a lot more coming.
Yep.
And as we always say, come for the drinks, stay for the stories. That will catch on. I will let that go.
Oh, yes. We'll trademark
All
that. Trademark.
right. That's right.
Cheers,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Cheers.